Welcome back, Shark Kings. There's a new game on Extra for us to play. And by new game, I mean it literally came out 2 weeks ago. That's right, it's a day one drop, and that is rare for us in PlayStation land. We get to be the first to dive in. It is fun, wholesome, and creative. Everything we look for in a short game. But is it just a kid's game, or is it worth your time as an adult? Is it all style and no substance? I beat the entire game just for you, and it took just under 10 hours, so it technically qualifies as a short game. Yay! In the next few minutes, we will break down how the game works, what it's all about, and talk about the most common complaints this game has been getting. I'll also be peppering in other games that are similar to this throughout the video, so if this game doesn't click with you, maybe others will.
Chapter 1. Some serious beeswax.
The Plucky Squire is a wholesome new game that blends 2D and 3D gameplay in a charming storybook world. You play as Jot, who is a hero in a wholesome children's book where he always defeats the wizard and saves the day. But the wizard gets fed up with his odds and uses dark meta magic to discover that he and Jot are actually in a book with a predestined outcome. So he comes up with something that's never been done before. He simply removes the hero from the book. The game has two main features that make it unique. The ability to swap back and forth between 2D and 3D worlds, and the ability to manipulate the story itself by changing the words around you. You'll jump in and out of the book to solve some creative puzzles, combat baddies, do some mild platforming, and defeat mini-bosses in a bunch of mini-games. In the 2D segments, you can interact with words and illustrations to alter your environment. This is a fun gameplay choice that builds upon a previous game I played, Lost Words Beyond the Page. In that game, you also manipulated words to alter your environment and story, but this game expands on that idea and it feels more fully fledged here. I know a few of you are thinking, Baba, it's you, did it better. And yes, it did, but I haven't played that yet. The 2D section has puzzles that usually involve words. It also has some combat and also mild platforming. The 3D section, you pop out of the book and time usually stands still for your crew. When you return to your party, they usually make a comment like, looks like the problem solved itself, before realizing eventually that you're the one that's doing something outside their world and comprehension. While you do gain items in the 3D world to bring back into the 2D book, the first thing you do in the 3D world is play with the book itself. The real fun is the manipulation of the book. You can tilt the book to move things, you can rewind time by flipping back the pages to grab some words or items from previous levels to help you in your current path, and can explore the desk itself that the book is on, which is full of life and doodles. Rewind time. Now that I think about it, this little plucky character is half as powerful as Thanos. He's got the time stone. Not only can he go back a few pages, but he later gains the ability to pause things. He's got the reality stone by changing the words, his environment, and the book's reality. And he's got the space stone. In the eyes of his friends, he just magically teleports out of their world to where he needs to be and comes back with the perfect item in hand. He's got 3 out of the 6 Infinity Stones. This plucky squire is way more powerful than I give him credit for. So getting back to the word manipulation, let's give you a fun example. So you might swap the word huge from a bug with the word tiny that's next to a frog. You can make that huge bug that's blocking your path smaller so you can get by, and just for fun, make the tiny frog huge. The real charm is finding these little details, going around and swapping out words and seeing if your new sentence will actually affect the world. In the 3D world, it's very similar to a simpler version of It Takes Two and Toy Story. You interact with a tiny world that takes place entirely on a child's desk. So you have pencils and crayons and drawings, all the while fighting off real-world monsters, aka bugs. The real charm comes from the non-book 2D world. Things like sticky notes lying around or coffee mugs with doodles and drawing. You can jump into these 2D worlds as well, which really switches up the gameplay and art style and keeps it fresh. The combat is pretty straightforward. Your basic moveset includes sword slashes and a Mjolnir-like sword that you can throw, which boomerangs right back at you at your command. You'll learn a few more moves and attacks as you progress and upgrade your abilities, but these two are all that you really need. The platforming is pretty easy, although some people will have a harder time with the 3D world because of the depth perception. Overall, it's a cute and unique game, but there's some serious discussions on why it's not great. These concerns of I've read a lot about, but I haven't seen too many videos talking about them. So we're going to get into that. So now that you know what the Plucky Squire is all about and all its fuzzy goodness, let's talk about these major issues that people were really angry about. The main complaint is that it holds your hands way too much. While it is an incredibly charming game, the main problem is that it gives you way too many hints. It's a world that you'll love to explore, but the game doesn't give you that chance. It will tell you exactly what you need to do at every step of the way. The camera even pans out like games did 20 years ago to show you the entire level and the items that you need to get. This cuts the fun a little bit as exploring is part of the adventure. Players felt frustrated because even though they went in expecting a wholesome kid-appropriate game, no one likes being treated like a noob, even in a kid's game. A large part of the game feels like a tutorial, which is quite alright and expected in the first half hour of the game, but it never seems to end. While hints early on are fine because you don't know how the game works, it crosses a line for a lot of players when the game gives you a solution to a problem you haven't even attempted yet. It makes you feel less independent. It would be forgivable if these hints were optional, and some of them are. There's a gnome-like character called Minibeard, who is usually at the corner of a page or puzzle, and if you're stuck, you can talk to him and he'll point you in the right direction. That's a great feature because he's there for the people that need him, but the people who want to figure it out themselves can simply ignore him. Another game who did this extremely well was Chicory. If you really wanted hints, you could find a phone and call your parents. Your mom would give you the general idea of where to go next, and kind of keep things ambiguous. But then she'd say at the end, "Do you want to talk to your father?" And if you did, he would be very blunt and tell you outright exactly what you needed to do. It made it really fun, especially when you encountered a difficult puzzle beyond his expertise, and he tells you to straight up look it up online. Now that's how you minimize handholding. Gameplay mechanic tutorials are fine when you gain new abilities. The real issue is the mandatory, narrative-driven hints that completely stop the gameplay, forcing you to watch the unskippable hints. This constant interruption to the flow ruins the immersion. Whether it's Moonbeard stopping the story to give you dialogue about what to do, your friends nudging you, telling you to do the exact thing you need to do, or that bookworm character who not only tells you exactly what you need to do, but sometimes will just go over what you just did. Like, yes, I know, I just did that, I was there. A lot of these interruptions are completely unnecessary. Stop interrupting my game. If I'm not controlling my character, make skippable an option. Another classic video game design no-no that I alluded to before is when the camera pans and shows you the entire level before you even start. This was really popular 20 years ago in the N64 days, but in a modern game like the Plucky Squire, it shouldn't happen this often. It spoils the fun of discovery and experimentation. Just let us explore and be surprised that when we reach the top, there are 15 enemies ready to ambush us. To show that to us in advance ruins the fun and breaks the immersion. If this was a book, it's like reading the last page first. The simplest fix to these problems is to make hints optional. All hints. You give us the option to turn spoilers off, he says as he spoils several moments of the game. Alright, now we're going to talk about the third problem. This is a brand new game and bugs are expected. I had to restart the game several times as I encountered several game-breaking glitches. Luckily, I was able to fix it just with a reboot. Some of the problems fixed themselves, and some were persistent no matter how many times I retry. Also, game design tip, please give us a custom save option. Autosave is just not reliable, because if it saves after the game-breaking glitch happens, then your whole playthrough is doomed. So always give us several saves to choose from. Please. So overall, the Plucky Squire is almost a perfect game, especially to talk about on our channel because it has a short runtime, it's incredibly creative, and it is super wholesome. Like the voice acting and the story, it's just so well done. Despite all my complaints, I still highly recommend playing it because it is a hecking charming story and world to adventure in. The main problems I and others had were the pacing issues, the hand-holding, and some of the glitches. They're all easily fixable. Let's hope they patch them all soon to make the experience flow a lot better by the time you play the game. The game hasn't even been out for a month so far, so it's too early to be harsh. Play this game with your kids, girlfriend, or just by yourself to take a break from the pew 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 and the scary games out there. So if you're new here, be a friend and I'll see you again. That means subscribe and like.